Hi, everybody. It's Mary Kelly, and welcome to Friday Morning. Congratulations on all of the work you've done this week with creating your vision, developing strategies, exploring your correct and right target market, and then thinking about the sales tactics and techniques you need in order to move your business forward. So today, it's all about the numbers. Yes, we get to describe what's actually making things work. Now, some people worry when we talk about numbers because either they feel they should be doing better, or they're not so sure, or they're just not even sure how to get the numbers under control. If you're a large organization and you've got a team of accountants, then you probably already know this. The first part of today's program is going to focus on business numbers, but the second part is focusing on personal finance numbers. And the reason this is so important right now is that we know more and more business leaders have had to help their people with budgeting. Before this whole 2020 started, the average American was living, well, about 59% of us anyway, were living paycheck to paycheck. Now that's down from 78% 3.5 years ago. So that was the good news. But for many people, they still had not established things like an emergency spending plan and an emergency saving plan. Maybe they hadn't put money into their retirement accounts, and maybe just in the exuberant excitement of being able to spend money, some people just didn't save. So that's going to be part two. But the first part of this is all about your business numbers, where we can go to find the right numbers and what this looks like. So I want to share my screen with you as we get into this. And I hope that if you're already a great business person, then these are not surprising numbers to you at all. And the first part of this is not really something you need to pay attention to. But the second part, like I said again, might be very helpful for some of the people on your team. So the buck stops here. Folks, if we are in business today, we have to be making money. Profit is good. Profit means you have the ability to provide the necessary goods and services to people who need them. And you are doing that well enough to be able to pay yourself, pay your employees, help out your community, help out people's families, support local charities, support national charities, and do good things because of the hard work you've put in. But the buck stops here, and we have to know what the numbers are. So let's talk numbers. Let's talk first off about your business profit and loss. Your business profit and loss statement is how much profit or how much loss you are making. And what's a little bit scary to me is many organizations, whether you're a nonprofit or a business, they know they have expenses and they know they have some kind of money coming in, but they're not always sure what their numbers are. The most successful businesses know their profits and they know their losses, and they account for those every single month. They know where the numbers are. So one of the questions I like to ask is, do you know your numbers? And do you know what it is you're spending money on? Does your top team know what your numbers are? Do people understand that when they waste time, say, on a job, or if they give someone a discount, it actually has an effect on the bottom line of the organization, and that impacts everyone. Many times people don't tell their sales teams what the overall operating budgets are and how much it actually costs them in order to protect them, or in a way they don't think everybody needs to know. We would disagree with that. We think especially your top team and your sales team needs to know what the numbers are so that they are not writing contracts or making deals that the operations department gets worried about, because maybe those aren't realistic numbers. So please make sure you know your business spending plan and what that budget looks like. The marketing people also get excited. And marketing people love to sometimes do grandiose things that may or may not best support you and where it is you want your company to go. And right now, that's critical. Your HR department also needs to know what your numbers are. Are you still hiring? Are you maybe having to lay people off? Are the people you're hiring coming in at the same level as the people they're replacing? What kind of talent do you need? So knowing the numbers is critical throughout the organization. Now, I'm going to get my econ geek on a little bit. As many of you know, I have a PhD in economics, and I've taught economics for decades. And I want to talk to you about things like break-even points, your total cost, total revenue, variable costs, and fixed costs. All right, I said that really quickly, but please give me a minute. So first off, when you start running a business, you are inherently going to incur costs, whether it's your own costs that you're putting into the business. Those are owner supplied resources, and those are implicit costs, things that you are doing. Now, many first-time entrepreneurs, or when you're first starting out, oftentimes we don't consider the value of our own labor, but it is a cost. That's a cost. You could be out doing something else. You could be delivering pizza and getting paid $20 an hour. You could be doing something else. So there is a cost for you to be spending time on your business. Now, your fixed costs are those costs that you have every single month, regardless if you are producing anything or providing a good or a service. That's things like your electricity. If you have an office building, it's your monthly rent, it's the maintenance, it might be a lawyer you have on retainer, it could be your accountant every month. Those are fixed costs. They don't really change very much. They might a few dollars here and there for utilities, but those are your fixed costs. So right away, you start above the zero line for your fixed costs. That's what that dashed line is. So when you start out in business, even though your total revenue, and your total revenue is how much you sell and at what cost multiplied. So you might sell one item at $20. So that's your total revenue of $20, 1 times 20. But you might have to think about that slightly differently. So let's sell 3 items at $20. Now you're at 60. Well, if your monthly fixed cost is, let's say, $20 a month, and I know we're using very small numbers. Again, we're trying to make this very simple. That's say your fixed cost. I think in the diagram, it shows a fixed cost of like $10. So if you even sell 1 unit at $20, you're probably okay. But no, you're not, because you've got those variable costs that you have to consider. So your variable costs are additional labor. It's your inventory. It's the cost of the goods you use in order to make other goods. So in the diagram that we've shown here, you actually have to sell 3 things of $20 each in order just to break even. And that's where your total cost, the total cost that you're spending on those particular items, is breaking even with your revenue. And that's called a break-even point. So multiply that by, say, 1,000 or 10,000. And that's where most businesses are operating. So that moment in time, that split second where your total revenue is exactly equal to your total cost, is a break-even point. That's a very good moment, because you've just now started to move into the profitable territory. Now, what you want is that total revenue line to be as far above your total cost line as possible. And where you want that profit margin, that's what we're talking about. You want that to be fat. You want that to be a nice, big, fat area. That's your profitability. Now, where some businesses get into trouble is they continue to produce along the bottom line. That's where it says 3 and 6 on the bottom. That's your quantity. And the other line, the vertical line, that's your numbers. That's your price. So many people, when they start to get profitable, they might raise their price and they try to produce as much as possible. You would think that would make sense. But sometimes when you produce as much as possible, you might be producing so much. So go beyond the 3 and the 6 and now get into 9 and 12, again, just for the sake of simplicity of this diagram. And all of a sudden, the costs it takes you to produce more and more might drive that total revenue number down. You might be selling more and you might be selling it at a higher price, but if your total costs are rising as well, they might overtake that total revenue line again. So where that total cost line starts to move upward too quickly and it surpasses your total revenue, that's the second break-even point. And that means you're again operating at a loss. That's bad. So you want your total revenue line to be above your total cost line, and you want that to be as fat as possible. So the first break-even point is a very good place. The second break-even point, a very bad place. You want to be operating in the middle, again, where your total revenue exceeds your total cost by as much as possible. So again, that's the most geeky thing we do today. Many businesses are having to pivot. And I love that we've got people in our Pivot Challenge who have pivoted their business. What else can we do in order to keep that total cost line down? We still got our fixed costs. We still might have some variable costs. So what else can we do to generate income at this time? Some companies started making masks. What can you do differently to keep your business afloat, to stabilize what it is you're doing and keep income coming in? Can your people do other things? What other value can they provide to their customers so that you can continue to generate income? Sit down with your team, have a serious conversation about what that might look like, and then craft out how you can market that. One of the big questions many of my leaders are struggling with right now is they've had to fire people. They've had to furlough people. Now, before that sounds terrible, some people, because of the new stimulus package, will make more money on unemployment than they were actually working. This brings with it a whole host of unintended consequences, where some people will not want to return back to the workforce. And that may be problematic, especially for certain demographics that have historically not had good luck in the market. And that is especially our first entrance into the job and our lower skilled workers. If they simply don't want to come back into the market and there's a big gap on their resume, some people will see that as, hey, they just wanted to sit home and collect unemployment, and it's going to be tougher for them to get that job. We also, before all this started, before 2020 started, there was a huge incursion of over 55 folks getting back into the labor force. And again, those people may or may not decide to come back into the workforce. Do you want these same people back? Maybe you were forced to furlough people. Maybe you needed to furlough people so that they could collect that unemployment. And that was the right thing to do. Some of those people you're thinking, maybe it's better off if we don't bring them back, or maybe we can bring on new talent because all these other people are now suddenly available. It is a great time for us to look really, really hard at the skill sets we need for the future. And now we have the opportunity to hire back for those jobs we really need. Now, again, if you've had to fire people, I am the first one to say it is a heart-wrenching and very, very difficult process. And it's difficult for the employee as well, but sometimes it gives the employee some freedom to explore other options, get creative, and pivot themselves. Now, one of the other unintended consequences we're going to see from this is the government stimulus package. Well, it costs money, and somebody's going to have to pay for that. And what that means is we're going to see higher taxes moving forward in probably both business as well as personal taxes. Now, whenever you raise taxes, some organizations, some people are going to find ways around that. And this is where the neighbor kid who mows your lawn and your babysitter and, well, drug dealers are all exactly the same. They operate in what's called the underground economy. Now, the underground economy means that there are transactions happening for which they are not paying taxes. So you probably don't pay taxes on the neighbor kid who mows your lawn. You're probably not paying taxes for the babysitter who babysits for you once or twice a month. And drug dealers generally don't pay taxes. So this is the underground economy. And whenever we drive taxes up, it encourages people to not declare money on their taxes. And so whenever that happens, we are seeing not only an increased burden on the people who are paying taxes, but again, it gives us a different number. It skews the data we have in terms of our gross domestic product. And our gross domestic product is, again, our consumer expenditures, plus our business investments, plus government expenditures, and add in our exports minus our imports. So that's the econ lesson of the day, that these are transactions that happen outside of taxable situations. So when we think about fiscal responsibility, we want to find out, are we being fiscally responsible with our business? And that means taking a good hard look at everything we're spending money on, all of our expenses, everything. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you some tools to do that if, again, you don't already have that in place. I've got some downloadable profit and loss statements, some entrepreneur budget spreadsheets that you can download and use, and then we're going to move into your money. But right now, we've got to focus on our numbers as well, for our business as well as for ourselves. We have to be fiscally responsible. So let's look really quickly at the 5-minute money plan. Now, this is the personal finance aspect of this. Because remember, most of us work pretty hard for the money, and we want to make sure that this is working for us as well. So let's take a couple minutes and figure out our financial plan. So again, it's not what we make, it's what we don't spend that matters. I like to tell my young people especially that it's it's a habit of saving, and it's a habit of not spending everything you make, because you never know when you're going to need this. So having the monthly spending plan and a budget plan is really helpful. And I call it a spending plan more than I call it a budget, because again, we have to plan for things. Otherwise, it's like somebody pouring water into your cupped hands, and the water just falls right through. You think you are doing the right thing by holding your hands up, but you're not holding water. So you can create a realistic spending plan. And again, this is all in one downloadable PDF sheet at the very end of this. And it is at productiveleaders.com/free, or free resources. Both work. But resolve to save, my recommendation is 10% of your income for retirement. And that's just for your retirement account. That's in a 401k, that's in your individual retirement account, or some other retirement account. If you're self-employed, that's an SEP account ideally. And that is for your retirement. You do not touch that money. And then also resolve to save a certain dollar amount or a certain percentage as an emergency fund until you have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. In order to get that number, you have to look really hard again at all of your expenses. And again, at the end of this, I'm going to give you a budget so that you can just plunk in numbers and it does all the math for you. And that's what it's for. The idea is you create what it is you need to live on for 3 to 6 months. So let's just have a nice round number of $10,000 that you can live for 6 months on $10,000. And that's your rent or your mortgage payments, all of your utilities, gas, groceries, your necessities. You're just talking about your necessities. You're not talking about luxury items. You're not talking about vacation. You're talking about an emergency fund that will tide you over in case you, for some reason, are not getting paid, or for some reason your business isn't generating revenue. And then the other aspect of this is what you want to stop spending money on. Especially right now, I'm working with many, many organizations and their people on what to stop spending money on, both as an organization and, well, as households. What do we just need to not spend money on because many people are home? So let's think about what's not really that important to you. And I like to say that people vote with their wallet. The things that are most important to them are the things they're going to spend money on, ideally, or they should be. Simply wasting money on things you don't care about, well, that's just not smart. And we want to be smart. So let's think really quickly about our retirement planning and our golden years. So review your retirement accounts while you're looking at everything else and make sure they're aligned with your retirement goals. So when can you afford to retire? Now, some people thought, well, I'm going to retire at 63. And I would ask them a question. Many people say I'm going to retire at 67 or 70. The average person in America says they're going to retire at age 67, but the average person in America has to retire at age 63, either to care for a spouse or a partner or their own health concerns or another family member. So that means that's 4 earning years that you're not getting. And maybe you only started earning money at, say, 21 or 22. Now, all of a sudden, that can take a chunk out of your retirement planning. So think about what you need in order to retire. And again, crunch the numbers, work backwards using an annuity calculator to figure out what kind of spending you're going to do in retirement, what you need, and then what that rate of return looks like. Then look hard at what your investments are doing and what your current assets look like. So your investments and your current assets are things that are your non-retirement accounts. And that can include a child's education fund, your savings, your checking accounts, all of those other accounts that you have. So I like to ask people, true false questions. Do you understand the fees that you're being charged by your financial institutions? If you're paying fees that you don't understand, pick up the phone and call them. Do you understand where your investments are and what they are? If you don't understand, find a financial advisor you trust. There's different kinds of financial advisors. There are fee-based, where they take just a specific amount of money for, say, an hour of their time. There are percentage-based, where they take a percentage of your overall portfolio. And then there are others who can advise you in different capacities. So again, understanding your investments and where they are is really helpful. In that other category, I'm talking about perhaps the HR advisor where you work. They oftentimes know where the investments are for your 401k, your SEP. Maybe you've got a matching plan at work. And they can help you understand where those are. And sometimes there is a liaison person with the organization that's actually handling the money. If you have one, you talk with your financial advisor at least twice a year. Yes, folks, if you have a financial advisor, it is a good idea to update your portfolio or just tweak it or just understand things twice a year. It does not have to be a long conversation. If they're being paid as a commission basis, you should make sure that happens. If it's not happening, that's something to schedule. If you are paying someone by the hour for totally objective advice, and I think that's also, all models are good and bad in both ways, then that can be very, very viable as well. There's new regulation out that says your financial advisor has to have a fiduciary relationship with you, which means they should be watching out for you. And hopefully your financial advisor has been watching out for you the whole time. I'm an economist. I have taught personal finances for 20 years, and I still have a financial advisor and a team. They're part of a team because I want someone looking at my finances and looking at overall portfolios every single day, and that's all they do. So just a shameless plug for the benefits of a financial planner. Credit cards, also known as plastic budgeting. Manage your credit cards so that you know when they are due so that you don't miss something. Right now, sometimes people feel a sense of scarcity, so they tend to not look at their bills. I like to do all of my bill paying online. Not everybody likes that. But let's say you've got some credit cards and you're not able to pay them off every month. So ideally, that would be part of your spending and your planning for reducing debt. So if you're not able to pay your credit cards off every month, pull out your credit cards, look at the number on the back, call up that number, figure out what you owe, and then ask what the APR, the annual percentage rate is, and then ask if you can get that reduced. So for example, if you're carrying, say, just $2,000 on a credit card, and because you haven't been paying attention, it got bumped up to the average in America, which is between 18 and 22%. But all of a sudden you call them up and they say, yeah, we can give you 5%. Well, you've just now made money. So call them up and be nice. You know, these are customer service people. So be really, really nice when you get them on the phone and say, hey, I'd like to review my APR. Can you help me? And be super sweet. They want to help people who are nice to them too. So real estate or your castle, as I call it. If you own your own home, it probably represents a certain percentage of the equity you have in your overall portfolio. So equity in the home is the difference between how much you paid for it when you originally bought it and how much it's worth now. So thinking about when your home's mortgage will be paid off, you know, that day when you are no longer making mortgage payments is fantastic. Now, for many people, they have a 30-year mortgage. There are also 15-year mortgages. And as you would expect, a 15-year mortgage means you're paying more per month, but it also means that that mortgage is done in 15 years instead of 30. You don't have to have a specific 15-year mortgage in order to convert a 30-year mortgage into about an 18-year mortgage. All you have to do is make another full payment every single year, starting when you first get the mortgage. Most mortgages today have eliminated what's called the prepayment penalty clause. In the older days, even if you paid off your mortgage and paid everything in full, you still got penalized for the interest you would have paid. So most mortgages right now have what's called a prepayment penalty waiver, which means that you don't have to pay that, but it's good to know. So you might want to just call up whoever has your mortgage and see when that mortgage is going to be paid off. And if you don't have a mortgage yet, and you're trying to save up for down payment, my recommendation there is, let's say you want to buy a home and you know that that home purchase is going to cost you with your mortgage and utilities about $1,500 a month. And right now you're in, say, an apartment and it's costing you $900 a month. My recommendation is pay your $900 a month in rent and then take that extra $600 and apply it towards your down payment fund. That gets you used to making that monthly payment and it builds up your down payment fund. So if you add some more money to that monthly mortgage payment, can you have your loan paid off early? If you're thinking about retiring earlier, if you're maybe 58 and your mortgage goes another 10 years and all of a sudden you're a little bit worried about maybe your health and you want to have that mortgage paid off before you stop working, it might be a good idea to start paying extra money toward that mortgage now. Now, vacation. We work for our money, so we should be able to have fun. I love travel. I'm going to love traveling again when we can do it again. I love planning trips. I love exploring the world. So think about what you're saving money for. And vacation planning that's exciting gives you good motivation to save money for a vacation. Sometimes people take their vacations on credit cards, and I don't really advise doing that because it tends to give you carte blanche to spend whatever you want instead of having a budget in your head. And think about the actual vacation. If you want to go to Paris or Brazil or Thailand, put that picture on your refrigerator so that when you're thinking about spending money in a way that you know is outside your plan, you're reminded of why it is you have a plan in the first place. I think money is used to have fun and help others, so let's get to it. So here's the resources I'm talking about for both business and personal planning. If you go to productiveleaders.com/free, there are tools you can download with no sign in, no anything silly. And this is how you can plot things out. It does all the math for you. You just fill in the blanks and you can change the fields if you need that. So there's a profit and loss spreadsheet there for your business. There's a household budget spreadsheet. And then there's also the entrepreneur's budget. So if you're just starting something out and you're not sure what things are going to cost, you can change that. And again, I recommend downloading it. So right click on those forms and then fill those in and then save them by month. So I think that's probably the best way to do that. So these are forms that, especially if you don't have a budget, this is a great place to start. There's tons of budgeting tools out there. This is your 5-minute money plan, and this is your personal 5-minute money plan. All in one place. This is, again, part of the downloadable, fillable PDF series that I have for leadership and business success. And this puts everything all on one piece of paper so that you're not overwhelmed by all kinds of other things. This all came from the book called Money Smart: How Not to Buy Cat Food When You Don't Have a Cat. So I'll just tell you where that came from, and then I'm going to show you where you get all of this for free. So How Not to Buy Cat Food When You Don't Have a Cat happened when I was sitting in a Navy executive officer school, and the person next to me said, "Hey, are you invested in the stock market?" Now, this was in the 90s when the stock market was growing really, really happily. I said, "Yes, I am." And the other person said, "I'm really scared of the stock market." And I said, "I'm afraid of being old and buying cat food when I don't have a cat." Because physiologically, apparently, I've been told we can survive on cat food for, well, a long time. I don't like the taste of cat food. That seafood medley, nowhere near as good as you think it would be. So that's kind of where the name came from for the book Money Smart. And this came out a few years ago, and here is where you go to get it. So please go to productiveleaders.com/flow of money. And this will give you the free download for the Money Smart book. And here's what's awesome. It is also in Spanish. I grew up in Texas, and I was very close to the Hispanic population there. And I wanted to make sure that when I put a book out on personal finances, that it was easily accessible and available. And it is always, always free in Spanish on the website, Productive Leaders, in the store. But right here, right now, it is, they're both totally free downloads. So grab those. And then there is the 5-minute money plan, which also, when you go over to that, it's going to let you download that 5-minute money plan. And that, again, is a fillable PDF. Now, if you've got questions on any of these things, this is how to get hold of me. I do have productiveleaders.com. And if you want to email me, I'm at productiveleaders.com. These are my phone numbers, 719-357-7360, if you get stuck on anything or something's not working. And we're going to post this for you. Stay tuned today because we've got more great stuff coming for you on how to pivot your business. Thanks for sticking with me as I walk through the numbers. The numbers for me are fun. I actually said the words to one of my teachers. I said, I think numbers and calculus and algebra made numbers not fun for a lot of us. But when we apply those numbers and suddenly there's dollars associated with them, all of a sudden the numbers become fun. So please, let's get those numbers under control. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you again soon. Thanks a lot.